Ladies and gentlemen, on the phone with us now is the owner, operator, and manipulator of USA Championship Wrestling, currently based in Jackson, Tennessee, but he has had a long and storied career as a manager, a promoter, and an old friend of mine, an old cohort. Ladies and gentlemen, the incomparable Bert Prentice. Bert, thank you for being on the Experience today.
Happy to be here, Jim.
Hey, we've talked a little bit earlier before we called you about just Brian and I about the trip to Jackson and back, but I wanted to save a lot of the show details because I don't want to embarrass you, but I will put you over here for a second at the start because you have always managed to find a way. A lot of people try to run independent shows where they book a lot of high-priced talent, maybe too much talent they can't pay for, even if they sell out, or they try to get some kind of local cable access channel with no talent whatsoever. You've found a great mix. You get sponsors. You establish a presence in the community. You do good local advertising, and I said you had a great ground game earlier in the program. You do it the old-fashioned way, and it works. We'll talk about how often you've been running Jackson, Tennessee, but every time I've been there, I was there as a fan about a year and a half ago when old Star Maker Bolin got his lawyer's limo to bring us all down to see Lawler versus Funk for the last time. And there looked to me 1,500 people. And last week, you had a great crowd, looked to me about 1,000 people. And you've been running monthly at this point with some names being brought in. Lawler's on your show. The Rock and Roll Express was there the other night. For what I'm worth, I was there. But you got a great mix of stars and local talent, and you do it the old-fashioned way. So I just want to put you over at the start. That's why we're talking today.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'll leave it at that. I appreciate that. We work hard. I mean, we do apply the old school standard here, you know. And I'm really not trying to give anyone a history lesson, but really when I started, I kind of just, you know, from the aspect of the business, I grew up in the business. A lot of people don't know, but my mother was Vern Gagne's box office lady in all of his spot towns south of Minneapolis, from Mankato, Minnesota, south, Iowa, South Dakota, Nebraska. And then she also worked for Joe Dusick out of Omaha. So whenever they did their spot time, my mother was, I mean, she ran the ticket offices and all them. And I'm the youngest of 10 kids, and I was way, way late. So she would take me to the shows. And actually, when I remember probably first recollection, 4 years old, the wrestlers literally babysat me in the locker room while my mother sold tickets. She would take me to the shows. And then I was probably 6 years old when they threw me out of the locker room and made me started selling their pictures. And at 6 years old, I was this chubby kid walking up and down the aisle, picture, 50 cents, 50 cents. They paid me 50 cents a day, and I brought them bastards back billions of dollars. And I'll tell you, it was crazy. But I did that, you know. I refereed my first match when I was 14. I was ring announcing at 11, literally, in them little towns. It's crazy.
I don't. Well, you've got it in your blood, and you know how to stir up some attention around town, and explain to the folks USA Championship Wrestling, and we'll tell some Nashville stories here in a little while. It was on your show that I had that altercation with Mr. Ferrara one time, but
I remember it well.
But you're based in Jackson now because you basically are bringing business back to the Oman Arena. It used to be the Jackson Coliseum. And it's like a lot of the older buildings these days, you know, sometimes they run out of tenants, and you've managed to revitalize that place somewhat. You're doing a TV in conjunction with the city of Jackson, and you've got a studio set up in the basement of the Oman Arena there. And
did for me.
And it's an amazing example of, you know, great local promotion setup.
I guess I would start, Jim, of course, I worked for Lawler they brought me here in 1989 or 90, I think it was. And then I left in about 94 and started Ozark Mount Wrestling in Jonesboro, which was a friendly promotion with Lawler for the most part. And then when Larry Burton, that all happened, and that thing collapsed in Nashville, I'd always wanted to go to Nashville. I seem to have more contacts in the country music world than I ever did wrestling, but so it just was a natural gravitation for me there. And once I seen the Selker and Burton thing, Wheels in Motion, I moved to Nashville. I shut down Ozark Mountain Wrestling, moved to Nashville, and they had a lock on that fairgrounds building that I couldn't break in, and I tried to keep telling the manager of the fairgrounds that they're not ever coming back, but he kept it actually 4 weeks for them. Still with no wrestling. The fans would go out on a Saturday night and pull the door thinking it was wrestling tonight, and no wrestling. But I put a tent. I had a friend down at the Nashville Stockyards, my friend, and he said, put a tent out in our back parking lot. Now, the Nashville Stockyards is a swanky place to eat. I mean, it really is a high upscale. I mean, it's $40, $50 a meal. I said,
actually, when you said Nashville Stockyards, a lot of people thought he's probably going to wrestle in the cow shit with the
I'm sorry, Nashville Stockyard Restaurant. I apologize. You're right. But anyway, we put a tent up there, and I had already secured a TV show on WNAB, 10 o'clock Saturday mornings, and I had been filming some shows out at the National Guard Armory, which was basically my foot in the door, but I knew there was no way I was ever going to draw a crowd in Nashville to the National Guard Armory, and didn't anticipate. So I went down to this tent, and I was probably been on TV maybe 5-6 weeks at that point, still fighting every day trying to get that fairgrounds deal. And they're not budging. And so Fanfare came to town, and I knew for sure that there was no way that Larry Burton could come back because they were locked out of there for 3 weeks during Fanfare. So I decided to run that tent for 3 weeks. And I began, Jimmy, that the tent shows drew over 200, 300 people every week for 3 weeks. And finally, I went out to the fairgrounds, and the guy there had learned what we were doing down there. And the lady that really got me the deal was Christine Jarrett. And she called the guy out at the fairgrounds and said, let Bert have this, please. Because Larry Burton had fired her, and that was a real big deal there for a second. And Christine was just, and she was just, Christine come down to the tent, seen the show, and I known her and always had a great rapport with her. But Monday morning, after the last tent show, when we put the tent down after Fanfare, the fairgrounds called me and said, come out and sign your deal. I said, what? And they said, yeah. Christine Jarrett said, you're absolutely worthy of having that contract in that building. On her word, she's the one that literally got me in that building.
Yeah, and
the first person I hired back was Christine Jarrett right there on the spot. But I would have done that anyway.
It was pretty seamless, wasn't it? Also, it was great for you in Nashville there because it's, pretty much right after they had closed down. And of course, we're talking about the USWA after like you said, the Larry Burton and the whole sale to the company in Cleveland. After they folded up, wrestling in Nashville had been a tradition weekly, literally pretty much since the 30s. So you were able to
seamless is a good way to put it, Jim, because it wasn't 2-3 weeks. It was weird because we were on the same TV station as USWA, but just an hour later. So the crowd just gravitated right to us, but it wasn't 2-3 weeks. I mean, we started off probably a little light around 250, which today they'd be dancing. They'd draw 250 a week, but it was up to the 400, 500, 600, 700 a week in no time. And we were off and running. It was an amazing, amazing time. And I brought Bill Behrens in to help me. And I mean, we ran, well, heck, you got Danny Davis sent me Randy Orton and Batista, and you guys really helped. You guys had that developmental deal in WWE, and they were wanting the guys to start to.
What was the one the one tag team match that we had for one of your shows that night? Was it me and David Flair against, good God, Brian Christopher
and Lawler, wasn't it?
And Lawler, yes. And oh my God. Yeah,
because we were going to do Lawler and Brian against David and Rick, and then Flair right at the end had some other quote engagement. But Rick Flair did all the promos for the show. I remember that.
And the problem is, the tag team of me.
But yeah, it was an amazing time. I mean, they seen some great. I mean, Nashville was used to it, but I mean, we brought, we did a $22,000 house in there with the Fabs in Fargo against Lawler and Dundee. I mean, there was still, the magic in Nashville back then.
And the one, and that's what I was going to say, the one that I was at with David, you had 1,500 people easily, if not more, in that place. Of course, they thought they were
absolutely
going to see Rick, and the tag team of me and David.
No. They knew Rick wasn't coming, but the original angle. Right. 6 months before that, Flair said, "Yeah, I'll do it. Then when it comes time to do the angle, let me do these promos for David. I got to be here." No, it was advertised you and put. No, that Drew on your own merit. Absolutely, we never advertised that Rick would be
good.
there.
Then I still had it because I had to call everything.
If Rick was
David,
if Rick was coming, we were going to move it down to the Municipal Auditorium because the Flair Lawler thing was kind of intriguing.
Yeah. David had never worked a Tennessee wrestling match before. He hardly ever worked at all at that point. And so suddenly I'm calling the match for him as we went along as Lawler and Bryan.
Absolutely did. Remember it well. Yes.
And yes. I was so blowed up. I think I puked in your locker room. Anyway.
Gotcha.
So, and you did have a great run in Nashville. And then, as a matter of fact, was that when you had some health problems?
No, the reason I pulled out of Nashville was Dixie Carter and TNA. Jerry Jarrett came to me.
Oh, that's right.
And he said, "Can I sublease the fairgrounds?" I'm like, "What do you do?" Well, and they had run Huntsville, and they had, ran Municipal Auditorium, and they did these things first, and he said, "We want to do an every Wednesday pay-per-view." They said, "We need a building," and that's perfect. And I had a great rapport with the fairgrounds. Jerry come in and said, could we sublease it? And I said, can we sublease your TV hour? Yes. Could I? Well, in the beginning, I even they had to use my insurance. I mean, it was just a crazy thing. But they had to turn it around because they had to keep their shows going. But they come in, and it was crazy because Jeff Jarrett would come to me on a Monday and say, "We need the building painted black by Saturday or by Wednesday." And I remember his late wife Jill and him. I mean, there were like 20 people in there painting that thing black, and they had it ready to go. It was crazy. But of course, they nicknamed it the Asylum. But they let me. I guess part of the deal was I still ran on Saturdays. But what happened with TNA, especially when Dixie came in, that like any pay-per-view, I guess in that type of thing, they did not give a dang about a paid gate. They gave tickets. We gave 20,000 tickets out a week in Nashville. There was not a Minute Mart, a Kmart, enough. They were on every register counter in that kind of. So they packed that place full. I mean, full. Well, a few paid on the floor, but they packed that place full. Well,
but but wait a minute, they gave out 20,000 tickets that only holds 2,000 people.
Yeah, but you got to give because you only get 10% back anything you give away, Jimmy. So they did right. But, and then when we turn people away with the free tickets sometimes.
That makes it impossible, though, as you were about to say, for you to run a show in a town and sell tickets.
On Wednesday night, they'd see Dusty, Sting, Luger. We had Kurt Hennig. We had everybody who wasn't working at WWE was on them shows and for free. And then Bert Prentice wants you to come see Joe Johnson and whoever for $10 on Saturday. Well, that didn't last long at all. So I had shot myself in the foot. However, caveat, they were paying me fantastic money. So I said, okay, I'm just going to stay home. I'll do these weekend spot towns, but I'll collect a check. And I did. They had me. I always paid the front person for that show. I'd be the local entity on the floor if there was any issue, because the fans had known me all the years. I always handled any issue that come up with that building with the fans, nights of show. They kept me on there, and that was part of my pay too. But I mean, I was a lot of money. So, and it was fine. But I ran a few shows. We probably ran at that point 8 shows a month, which I guess is still a lot for independent promotion back then. But now we run 12, anywhere from 12 to 8 a month. But finally I pulled out of Nashville, that show, because if I'd give it away free, I'd pack it out too. It was crazy. And let me tell you, the ramifications of that has still affected Nashville. Nobody has, and other promotions can tell you, Crossfire, people in there right now, any of them can tell you, oh yeah, we do great. Look at this crowd. They had to pad that place. I don't care who they are, ROH even. They had to give tickets away to pack that place up there, because that building became the free place to see wrestling.
Well, and it's a similar situation down in Orlando at this point. I think it's hard to get anybody, especially when TNA was running more often. They were doing the same thing in Orlando at Universal Studios with 1 or 2 tapings per month and pay-per-views that just, go to the park. You don't even have to pay for parking. Yeah. Just get in there. But anyway.
Then when they moved to Florida, I thought, oh, my gosh, man, we're going to have a resurgence here. And I took my building back and painted it back white like they wanted me to and do all the thing. And unless it was free, Jimmy, they didn't come. The only thing I did do, and we did Lawler's 40th anniversary show, and we did $11,000 house with him and Sid Vicious. That was the last time any real decent house, ever legit paid house, came out of that building.
I have a bone to pick with you, though. Because when you did Lawler's 40th anniversary, he'd actually been in the business 43 years.
Well, we're not supposed to be telling that. When we did his 45th in Jackson, it was actually 48. Yeah. Yeah.
But
yeah, very much is.
We love the King. He's working for you at your next show in Jackson, right? He was.
Yeah, he's out here with us on August 3rd, 4th, and 5th. In fact, I'll be with him tomorrow. We're going to have barbecue at Jerry the King Lawler's barbecue tomorrow. But he's coming back for 3rd, and he always does well here. And I've been very loyal to him. He's been a very loyal friend to me. And any chance he gets where he don't have to travel and he can still work, and he'll do it, locally for me. He's been a great.
Well, I guess when I was down there, like I said, with his last match with Terry Funk, it looked like about 1,500 people. I'm not trying to air your tax returns, but and I believe that you promoted Lawler and Dundee earlier that year and beat that crowd. It's amazing. And a lot of people from outside the area don't understand the hold that Memphis wrestling of that time period was so strong, and these guys were so enduring that you can draw more fans with the stars of 30 years ago in Tennessee than you can with the wrestlers of today.
You can, and what we try to do is mix these kids that we're trying to get over them. And that's why I have a weekly episodic television show. And they always say, well, why don't you have Brian and Doug and Coke going on? You already know them people, folks. So if I put them on a card, you already know them. There's no sense to give them any more TV time. You know them. You've seen everything they can do. Let me give the TV time to these young kids that can get over, and they are literally drawing on these house shows. I got a team here called the Star Twins that, they did like $700, almost $800 in merch at their table at Oman Arena the other night. That's insane.
And by the way, if anybody from the IRS is listening, that's I'm sure it was donated immediately to their favorite charity. But no, I saw that after that tag match. Your local baby faces. Of course, it wasn't the glory days of Stan and Steve, but we've lowered the bar on these things. But your babyface tag team goes over to the merchandise table, and the fans, especially the kids. That's another thing I enjoyed seeing. Was out of however many people you had there, I would say 30% of them were kids, like it used to be.
Yeah, we really try to market here with the advertising. We really do.
But all the crowd mobbed the baby faces at the souvenir stand, and these are not kids that have any name really outside West Tennessee right now.
Right.
But they've been promoted on the television that the folks are watching, and that's also the city, I guess, has tell the folks how they could see the TV if you're in the West Tennessee area.
Okay, if you're in the West Tennessee area, Jackson owns their own cable system. And they have Jackson was one of the first cities in America the mayor was a real visionary, and the city manager, and they knew when the optic cable was coming. I mean, this was like 20 years ago. They saw and so they made Jackson one of the first optic cable cities in the world. It's an amazing story if you really get into it. So anyway, they have this thing called Jackson Energy Association, and they pretty much have a hold on the whole city, cable, water, garbage, electricity, everything is through JEA. And so they have their own cable. Well, they have their own channel, which is Channel 2 and or Channel 6 and Channel 206 HD. Everybody watches it. I mean, it's great TV. They produce some great local shows, and they have like Beverly Hillbillies and all that other stuff. But anyway, what happened, I started running Omen, and Nashville's dead as far as I'm concerned, as far as trying to build something weekly. It's a dead. So I started coming to Jackson about 4 years ago, and I'd come once every 6 months. And we did well. We have never done poorly. Anything I've ever put in there. Lawler's pretty much been on most of the shows, but so eventually,
and you
we
did
had
also the reunion of Lance Russell and Dave Brown that night.
Lance Russell,
that Funk was there.
Absolutely.
The line was around the Coliseum on the inside, but they had a table in the corner, and the people were standing two abreast, and it wrapped all the way around because the Jackson Coliseum, Omen, is just like a miniature Mid-South Coliseum. It only seats about 6,000. And
right.
The line was wrapped completely around the floor area to see Lance and Dave. They were the most popular folks there. And once again, these are people that all these fans and all these people in the town grew up watching on television every week.
You know, it's amazing too, though, Jimmy, is the ticket orders that we got, especially for Russell, but really for that Lawler Funk thing. We had 16 states. That's Jackson, Tennessee. We had 16 states, ticket orders from 16 states coming to that show.
And but anyway, I interrupted. But the point is, with the local Jackson cable, and you're on there.
So one time, the mayor came to the show, and he said, "Man, have you ever thought about doing a TV show here and filming?" We were talking about the owner. I said, "It's just too big. It's going to look empty. You could have 2,000 people in there, and it'd look empty. It's too big." And he told me, he said, "If you want to start doing TV," he says, "I appreciate what you're doing with the Omen Arena, because the Omen Arena is very similar to Memphis Mid-South Coliseum. Every month when they have their city council meeting, one or two city council members, when are we tearing the damn Omen Arena down? When are we tearing, and that has just been and the mayor, the history here, he just loves that building. And he appreciated the fact that
it's beautiful. It's not in disrepair from what I saw. The locker room
at all
spacious. The air conditioning's beautiful. The seats are gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's a striking building visually.
They've taken great care of it. They've taken great care of it. Of course, they built that Jackson Civic Center, but it only holds half the people. But they said, well, it's an elevator. It costs this too much. Anyway, so the mayor, and in his mind, and he's a great visionary, he said that, we could, we'll put you on the TV show here. We'll give you Saturday morning, 11 o'clock for free. We'll just air the show. I said, it's just going to be tough to find the facility to do that, because I know how much TV costs. I mean, I knew I needed a studio with the lights and blah, 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 blah. So I went down and talked to Perry Murphy, who's the city manager he said, I said, "Perry, do you have a room, like maybe a ballroom or something at the Civic Center I could turn into?" He said, "There's a corner of the basement at the Omen Arena." He said, "Let's drive over there and look at it." And Jimmy, the way you seen it the other night, and I knew when you walked in, because your eyes just went like, "Oh my God," like you stepped back 30 years. But I could see that vision right there. Oh, okay, that wall, black curtain, there, boom, announcers, dressing room, perfect. I said, "Yes, this is perfect." I said, "But the cost and how much?" He says, "It's yours. Just do it." I'm like, okay, now all my life I've chased TV stations, had to give them thousands of dollars to be on. Now I have free TV. I have a free place to film it. My production crew isn't free, but I got a great 4-camera shoot with HD that's great. That is very, very nominal. And then not only that is I guess we've been on TV now, our 14, 15 episodes. I've had 2 stations come to me asking if we'd like to be on their channel.
I hate you.
I've never had that in the history of my life.
I hate you.
The last show that we did before this one, Lawler Doug Gilbert cage match, WBBJ, the CBS affiliate over there, and I didn't even know they were coming, came and we were featured, and get this, 7-minute segment on the 10 o'clock news. That doesn't happen. I
know everybody now is going, oh my God, Cornette's laws are here. What it's a classic example of my horrible timing. I ran promotions and had to beg to get on TV, just like you were talking about. You have to beg to find a place to run, and you have them handing you these things. It's amazing. And then, but once again, if it wasn't somebody that knew how to operate these things and knew how to make the most of them, you wouldn't know what to do with it. And, and you've done a fantastic job.
Well, thank you. But the method there is, in their mind, more we can get out, hey, look what's happening at Oman Arena, more people will rent it. And that's exactly what's happening. So it's a win-win for the city. It's a great win-win for USA Wrestling. Phenomenal win for the fans. Because, and this has basically become my home and arena. I actually have an office there. I mean, it's just, it's where we build everything out of. When we film the TV every 3 weeks, and it works. We only got the first 100 people in. In fact, the Sunday we filmed, we had to turn about 50 away. So it's like the old Channel 5. They're lining up out there at 11 o'clock to get in for a 1 o'clock taping. It is magic, and you do step back in time. But Jim, it's amazing to these people. A lot of these, especially this younger generation, they think all this is brand new. I'm like, are you kidding? We're not reinventing the wheel here. This is what it's supposed to be.
This is the way it's always been done.
Whoever dreamed of wrestling in the studio? I'm like, are you kidding me? That's as bad as I was in Knoxville 2 weeks ago, And I was in the locker room, and this one wrestler in there, and of course, wrestling in baggies and a T-shirt. Jim, he did not know who Andre the Giant was. And I called the promoter back here. I pulled the Cornette. I said, you get this effing SOB out of this locker room, or me and my guys are leaving. I will not share a locker room. If they don't know who Andre the Giant, why the hell are they even doing it?
Oh my God. And I was about to say, maybe Brian can back me up. You may be the only promotion in this country with their own arena, like they do in Mexico. That's how they made money all those years. They have their own arena. Yeah, there you have your own facility right there.
Well, we do. We have a non-compete. Nobody, of course, once I started running, everybody tried to run here, and you can't get in to either building in Jackson, period. And they've been loyal to me, but we're loyal back, but they've been loyal, and we've really established them. This Todd Curry kid who we put the belts on last week, there's going to be a big star here. He really is. And the Star Twins, the girls go gaga. And of course they still love Lawler, Coco, Doug Bryan. That's what we want.
Hey,
hell, somebody drove clear from Wisconsin just to see you alone.
Oh, I know. Once again, I thought that I was going to have to throw down in the parking lot and show off my fucking, Conor McGregor shit, because as I pulled into the parking lot of my hotel, not even the arena, but my hotel, I'm getting out of Black Beauty and I'm going to go check in, and this car had pulled up right on the left-hand side of me a couple spaces, and both guys got out as Mr. Cornette, and I'm like, oh shit, and they're rushing at me, and they had just got in from Wisconsin. We're staying at the same hotel and came down. That's got to be fucking 700-800 miles or whatever to just
gotta be. Yeah, every bit of a 12-14 hour got at least.
And it just goes to show you, Bert, you put me on the card, look what happens. People come from...
Yeah, I mean, and they told me, we're here to see Jim Cornette manage the Rock and Roll Express. And you know what? And you could tell, I mean, they appreciate the history.
Speaking of history, tell the story. It's fun. It's not the first time we met, but during the first run when we first worked together was the LPWA. And actually, I talked about that earlier in the show also, when I talked about the difference between the LPWA and Glow. But the story you tell, start out with, how did you get contacted for the LPWA gig? And then we'll tell the story what happened in the casino at night when we're shooting TV in front of those rednecks and that guy popped you.
Joe Pedicino called me. Of course, I'd known Joe forever. And he said, we have this idea. he said, we have Judy Martin and Lonnie Kai, and we're not getting them over, and they're the best workers in the world. And they just, but we want to do this idea. And we kicked it back and forth. And finally we come up with this thing where they're going to hang this sheet, and then they're going to have this person with a tiara behind the sheet saying, the Queen is coming, the Queen is coming. Everybody in the world, if you remember, thought it was Moolah. Was going to be Moolah managing Judy, but they didn't know Judy and Leilani were part of the deal yet. Then when they first brought me in, they dropped the sheet, and there I am in all my. I mean, as they say, I made Liberace look straight, and we had an incredible time. And the Glamour Girl, that thing was over from day one.
And you were Queen Christopher Love, the Queen of Red.
Queen Christopher Love, and you did every riding the ferry joke you could across from the Don Lawson's hotel you could possibly muster. And it worked. About the 6th week in, they put the title belts on us, where they hit whoever with a Hailey Morgan with My Purse and whatever. Well, we're fixing to go back to the dressing room, and the security guards turned on us, the cops, the physical cops of the building. And they said, get back the best way you can, you son of a bitch. I'm like, wait a minute. See, I mean, the crowd's hot. I mean, you were there. They were hot. And the cops refused to take us back. No, because we cheated. The cops turned total mark there on the floor. Never had that happen before, ever in my life. I'm like, what? And Judy and Leilani there. And Leilani says, okay, let's put Queen in the middle and let's just go for it. Worst thing we could have done is that. So I should have come over to you, Jim. They won't take it something. But at that point, and you feel the crowd kind of whooshing at you, but we're going to run, which is the worst thing. So we ran down the, I got beat to death. I mean, punched in the face, hit stomach, boom, boom. I come back there, my nose is bleeding, my lips are bleeding. You evidently seen it because you left the announcer's table and you came back there and you took one look at me and you said, get all them MS back here right now. I mean, these are cops in uniforms with guns and security and everybody. And I mean, you got in everyone's faces and called them everything. I mean, and they took it though. That you told them, we pay you how much money. That was really the first time, and I was so appreciative of you doing that. I think that was really where the first time I got to know you well was LPWA.
Well, here was the thing. Joe had asked me also to come and be the color commentator for the Ladies Professional Wrestling Association, and they presented girl wrestling, but it was, before that was a condescending term, that's what it was called, girl wrestling, but straight, not like the glow, but actually, hopefully people will think these people are trying to win these titles and all that other stuff. But we're taping, and I like the promoter. Torberg was a fellow from Minnesota. He was a great guy. And he brought in a lot of the AWA guys. Ray Stevens was an agent for us one time, and Wally Carbo always came out. And it was a great atmosphere there in the locker room. But
phenomenal.
As far as running that television production, there was nobody taking an assertive stance when this was not Las Vegas. This was not a cosmopolitan crowd. This was Laughlin, Nevada. And I'm sure some of these people probably rode a burro to come into this goddamn casino where it was probably Tunica, Mississippi, probably looks like Las Vegas next to Laughlin, Nevada at that point in time, in 1991. And they send you out there to do that. It was strong for the time. You were getting some heat with these fucking coal miners or whatever the fuck they were. And then I didn't even realize there was a problem with the security guards until everything already happened. And then me and Pedicino were sitting there going, what the fuck? And they told us, I said, hey, what the fuck? And I went back there and said, goddamn. And I was telling Tor at the same time, you send this guy out to do this shit and get heat from the people and then leave him twisted in the fucking wind and let him beat the fuck out of him. If I was him, I wouldn't fucking go back out at all. And I know part of it you defended me because of a manager thing. You probably been in that situation, but I appreciate that you come back there and held court because I mean you did. I've never had a problem since then. the fucking taping was going way too long, and I wanted to get the fuck out of there, and everybody was standing around wondering whether they were going to have a riot or not. I said, if you people tell them sit down or you'll kick them out, you ain't going to have a riot. Get on with it.
Yeah, that did happen. I remember that did. Yeah, you're right. Let me tell you a little side story to that, which is probably one of the greatest nights of my life ever. Of course, being from the AW territory, Ray Stevens was an idol of mine, so much to where I couldn't talk when I was around him. And the fact that he was part of that LPWA was really special to me. Wally Carbo, Pedersen, the whole thing was just amazing thing. Hell, they even had me steal a bunny rabbit from Norman the Lunatic that got over so huge it was crazy. The stuff they did back then was so classic stuff. But that very night in the bar, after that incident where the security wouldn't help us back, Ray Stevens was in the bar, and I never would talk. It was just something in me. I just respected him too much. I just held him in such great esteem. He was just so magic in the ring. He was just my idol of all idols. Turned to me, he said, "Hey, kid." I said, "Oh, gosh." "Yeah, yes, sir." And he said, "Swear to God, Jim, and in fact, I think I want this on my too." He said, "If you managed me in San Francisco, Roy Charge would still be in business." Well, you might as well. I mean, if nothing ever happens in my life again,
you can die.
Will ever top that moment? Nothing. Nothing will ever top what he told me that day. Nothing.
Oh my God. I got a chance to, I've told a story here on the show, so I won't tell it again. They can look it up on YouTube, but I got a chance because of the LPWA taping. Ray was living in Charlotte with Wahoo, and we were going to fly back to Charlotte because I was in Charlotte also. And our plane got rerouted to Atlanta. And instead of staying overnight and flying the next day, I said, "Hey, I'll rent a car if you want to ride." Yes. So I got to drive Ray Stevens from Atlanta to Charlotte and sit there and talk to him for 4 hours, which was now we're marking out. We're being
that
nerds.
Makes me very jealous. But you know what? We can mark out. I try to tell these kids today. I said, "You guys, you're all bitching about a 200-mile road trip. I used to get up in San Antonio, drive clear up to Odessa, and come back and wave to my apartment as I'm going to Corpus Christi next day. You guys want to cry and want $50 extra because you got to go 100 more miles? Get out of the business." But the road stories are the best thing. I'm so jealous that you got that road trip. That's great. Absolutely great.
Hey, I'll tell you something else too. The LPWA was one of my, I don't even know if Brian knows this story, that the LPWA was one of my frustrated booker experiences because right before, and you probably know more about this than I do because you love soap opera stuff. Not you, Bert, but before Magnificent Mimi's boyfriend pulled the plug on the finances, Tor had said, "Well, we're going to do a pay-per-view, and I want you to book the TV for the next 8 weeks." So I had actually written, and I don't even know if I kept it. I might have got mad and tossed it, but it'd be a collector's item. But I wrote 8 weeks of TV for the LPWA with the girls leading to a pay-per-view. But I said, if we jazz this pay-per-view up a little bit, I actually had commitments to appear on the LPWA pay-per-view, ravishing Rick Rude when he had just left WWF and it was really hot. Terry Funk, Stan Lane, and Jerry the King Lawler all agreed they would do this. And I had these shows written, and like 2 days beforehand, you probably remember when they called and said, we might not be going to do this anymore. And I'm like, what the fuck?
I remember one time they had me and my brother, Bobby Joe, when he was live. We were down, they were going to do a pay-per-view in Panama City, and we gave over like 20, 30,000 tickets out to the whole town. And Pedicino called me the night before, said, "Get out of the hotel. We're not doing the show." That happened.
Get out of the hotel.
That was LPWA. Get out of the hotel. We're not doing the show. Tor, I guess, played that money right down to the line, and if they didn't come in, and then they didn't do the show, but they would have had a big house in Panama City because everybody in the world was coming to that show.
Good Lord. What's you've managed in Memphis for quite a while also, as well as working, running towns.
I started managing in 1983. I managed Tully Blanchard. Joe Blanchard brought me in 83. Actually, I was brought in to write programs, Wrestling Weekly programs. And then I walked in one day, and Don Carson was leaving. And Joe said, "Man, Tully's been here forever, and he's getting stale." And I said, "And we really want to do it. Put a manager on him." Do you think that I'd never done none of the like I've seen in my life? I'd never managed in my entire life, nothing. I'm like, "So sure, I could do it." And they named me after a truck stop, Love's Truck Stop. Tully named me Christopher Love, and that was basically where the line came. "Hey, can you make Liberace look straight?" I said, "Sure," and I pranced through the aisle. He said, "Perfect." I was on the TV show the next Monday. In fact, they did a thing where Tully goes to Hawaii and he has a new business manager, and I come out in pink lame and ostrich feathers. And they got Bob Sweetan, who he was in a major angle with behind the stage. I was going out there for Steve Saxon. They gave me actually 3.5 minutes to tell the story because Tully said, "You stand behind there." And I says, "If you get out there and freeze, if you get, just say what you need to say and then go ahead and walk off. Sweetan will take the time if you get in trouble, but don't panic and don't." I mean, they really were out on a limb with me on that thing. And I went out there, and as the story goes, I talk about 15 seconds, and Sweetan walks back in the dressing room. Tully says, "What the fuck are you doing back here?" He says, "That kid can talk for 11, 12, 15 minutes. He's natural." So that made me feel good. When I came back in, all the guys, now this is someone who's never done this before, applauded me. So I was like, wow, this is going to be amazing. But Tully Blanchard taught me more than anything there. I managed him in angles, and I managed Adrian Adonis there. And of course, the Sleepers were in there. Luke Williams kind of took me under his wing. He taught me a lot about managing. Just everybody just took me in, and I did Christopher Love until, of course, at that time is when Vince was getting everybody to team up to go against Blanchard, because he told them all, now Blanchard's on that USA cable, he's going to go nationwide and put us all out of business, which was Vince's plan all along. So, and I talk about this a lot in my upcoming book I want to plug called Tonight, that Scott Teal is doing. But they would they teamed with Fritz and Paul Bosch, and they would send in Andre. They would every promoter would send somebody in because, oh my God, Joe Blanchard's going to, and WWE had someone at the USA Network's headquarters every day trying to get that show from Joe. And they would come into Westlaco, the spot towns. They just beat Joe down to where there's basically nothing left. Long story short, they got the USA Network from him. Tully went on to be the Four Horsemen. From that point, I went back to Minneapolis. The Vern was crippled too because he had pulled Hogan. He had, everybody manageable. But that's where I actually started managing. And then I was in Minneapolis actually when Joe Pedicino called me and said, I'm starting this thing in Dallas called Global Wrestling Federation, and would you come be on Global? And I was a manager there. And then that's when Lawler, and then had seen me on TV. They were on ESPN, and they called me on a Wednesday and said, "Can you be at Memphis Channel 5 on Saturday?" And I never left.
And I tell you, the thing is, the old-fashioned manager is a lost art, because now it just a lot of people think it's just a way of walking a guy to a ring and, then you're doing your own thing. But you had to learn how to fucking go out and compliment your boy and when to back up a little bit and not be seen, and when to be over the top. I know you had problems with being flamboyant, but you were tailor-made especially as a Southern Territory wrestling manager. But I was going to ask you a minute ago.
And I tried to really, when I went into Memphis, first they called me Christopher, and then Jerry wanted Honey Love. But we finally did an angle where I was trying to do the takeover of the company, and we did this thing at the courthouse, and my real name is Bert Prentice, so we did the thing. And then I got to change my name to Bert Prentice because it just made it a lot easier on there. At that point, I went into wearing more of the suits and stuff and got away from all the glitter and all that.
But
so my last 5 years in Memphis were really Bert Prentice. And really, Lawler used me to manage everybody that he went against.
What was the crazier part of Tennessee wrestling? Being a manager or being a promoter? Which is the? I know.
Well, I didn't like. I didn't. But I didn't. I knew I was. Let me tell you, and it's really weird, the naive on my part. I knew who Jerry Lawler was, but I really didn't, really have a clue what Jerry Lawler was. Brought me in on the Saturday. Monday, I'm in the main event managing this guy with a dragon hood. He had 7 matches. He did not know how to, could not even walk and talk enough, but he was 7 foot tall. And Lawler, and I didn't know Lawler's shtick then. I didn't know what Lawler did. I'm like, okay, they're making a joke out of this. We're wrestling against Jerry the King Lawler. Saturday, Monday night, Mid-South Coliseum for the world title. And I got this clown that I got to push out in the box, that I got to open up, and he comes out, this big dragon head it's called the Dragon Master. I'm like, okay, I can see I'm going to be a 1 week wonder here. He's going to be, okay. And I'm sitting there at ringside, and let me tell you something, and this is absolutely no bullshit. This kid gets in the ring. His name's Gary something. I want to say his name's Gary Rich, but that's probably wrong, but it's Gary something.
No, you know what? I know exactly who that was, because the 6 months before, I think I gave Randy Hales his number or something, because he was working Gary, and right about Rich something, and he was working in Richmond, Virginia, for VWA, and I said, hey, you ought to call these folks, and they brought him in, and yes, and he was very limited. He was horrible. He was horrible. Great kid, loved the kid, but he was the worst wrestler I'd ever even been around. But what did Lawler do? For 25 minutes, Jerry Lawler had that whole arena thinking this guy was just annihilated. Lawler put him wherever he needed him. And I sat there, and I'm telling you, I'm like, oh my God, I'm watching Picasso paint the most amazing picture ever in the history of it. I'm like, how does he do that? And it was after another, I'm like, oh shit, you better get your head in this match, because I was watching it. Lawler was just a magician. I can't even begin to tell you how just phenomenally great this guy is in the ring. I was like, oh my God. And we beat him for the belt. And I'm going, okay, well, at least I know I'm going to be employed for 2 weeks. And come out, and we had a little program with him, maybe about 4 weeks thing. But Lawler, and we wrestled, and if you do it in Memphis, you're going to do it in Louisville, Evansville, Nashville, and probably the spot town. But Lawler was just a magician. And I was like, wow, this guy, I was in awe. I didn't know anybody could be that good at the wrestling ring. I really, really couldn't. I didn't have it was just amazing. And I was like, okay, it's great. But Memphis really became home to me quick. Lawler and I hit it off good. And I ended up doing the programs there for a little extra money, because money was tough back then. That's where I learned what the gimmick tables were, not to do them famous grab bags. And I know all the guys wondered how the hell I was, if I had a mother sending me motherware, because I always could stay, somewhere decent. And I always, was on the road pretty good. But I learned that gimmick table even as a heel, because the baby faces were making a fortune. But I had to make something. So. And you did a wonderful surprise package business. Christine Jarrett would have been proud. Last Saturday night in Jackson, Tennessee. I remember when I was a kid going to the matches in the early 70s, the surprise package was a manila envelope, 5 8x10 pictures of your favorite wrestlers for $1. But of course, the envelope was sealed. That's why it's a surprise package. You pay the $1, you get your and it was a midget, a girl wrestler, 2 heels that had left the territory, and somebody you'd never heard of. But it was 5 8 stuff they wanted to get rid of. Yep. Yeah, man, and you've taken it to new heights with much better quality of merchandise, to be quite honest with you. But you had a fine mystery package deal. What do they call those things? But Jim, you got to do that. You really do got to do that. You need every avenue income stream now. It's a new day, and exactly. That's why once again, for people who think they know how to promote wrestling these days, but you can't book every fly-in and et cetera, and every indie darling and spend a fortune and advertise on Facebook. Still the money to be made in wrestling is good local promotion in a variety of media, and getting some folks around town talking about your product and giving them some consistently good shows that they enjoy. Well, Jim, a lot of people still laugh at me because I do posters and
and I put cards by the cash registers in town. We do road signs, we do banners, we do little yard sign things that line up, at the Walmart, and there's 10 of them in a row. And you just have to do the ground game. People don't believe in them, and put it on Facebook. Oh, we're going to draw huge. That's the least thing that we do of our promotion, our social media. And I know it's important, but that is just its own word. You still got to get to them hardcore people that are going to come, and they've got to see that sign, and they've quit reading the newspaper. Radio is very sporadic, although we do buy some, but them banners placed at the right intersection will pay dividends more than anything. But them old fashioned posters, walking out of a restaurant and seeing them, is just there. I still believe in them, especially, of course, I run, at least 8 little spot towns a month, and they're critical still, but people laugh at me for doing, you just put up on Facebook. Well, okay, whatever.
Well, hey, besides, you can do like I do with Smoky Mountain Wrestling. You can save some of the posters and sell them autographed for $25 in 20 years.
Who told?
Hey, well, and speaking of running all those towns, is there a website where the folks can go specifically to see the schedule if they want to know how to see one of these shows?
There's USAChampionshipWrestling.com, and there's Facebook, USA Championship Wrestling. And it's crazy because the first question you asked me when we come on, and I still haven't answered it, where you can see it on TV. But we're obviously on the High Spots Network, through and the Pivot Chair and all that stuff. But we have our own online channel, and it's USAChampionshipWrestling.tv or USACW.tv, and you can watch 24/7 any episode you want.
And how much are you on camera?
We're fixing to go on a station in Paducah, Kentucky. It looks like within the next couple of weeks.
What I was about to say, how much are you on camera? If I watch, I want to see some of you. And if you're going to Paducah, I want to see you dressed up like the Duke of Paducah with the big hat and come in.
Well, there you go. I was Steve Murphy and Brian Thompson started out as my team, and Brian had other commitments. Then I came in as the color commentator for about 4 episodes. Now I'm just doing the stand-up interviews because I can lead the young kids where they need to go with the promos and kind of lead them along there. But I got phenomenal promo people. This Christian James, the kid that you worked against, Eric Andrews, I've got him as my hottest heel in about 5-6 weeks. A lot of people after me say, "Oh, you're bringing in this guy from Kentucky." This guy, I'm telling you, he can run his mouth so good and draw the people where they just want to come out and hit him. I mean, I got some heat on him, and that's worked really well.
Hey, what about Lucky P? Is Lucky P out of traction yet? Because
Lucky P is I've actually now I did a little test with him on the last episode, and we're now making him a full-time heel color commentary on there. I'm doing all the stand-up interviews. Lucky P will be color commentary. Then if he has to manage a match on TV, I'll take over the color for that. But that guy is out of the old school where we come from, Jim. If he does not,
I'm sorry we didn't get off on a better foot then, because I've whacked him over the noggin.
You did, to beat shit out of him. But I really believe.
Stretched out on a stretcher like that, and they said traction, and they said minimum 6 months. I was hoping he'd be okay to come back and do your show the next day.
Well, I hope so too. Well, he can sit there and talk at least. But even when Jimmy Hart was here last month, he said, "Man, that guy's got that. Man, you just never know," and really gave him a pet. But he's of the old school vein. I wouldn't be surprised if someone does something with him. I really do on a major level. I mean, I think he has the potential to really be a big star. I really, really do. There again, will they honor the legacy of the managers? I always think, the manager's got to come back because, man, that was just so. And there again, we're doing something, and people, this guy's got ridiculous heat, and they've never seen it before. And it's like, do you not watch any of the old Cornette, Heenan, anything back from? I mean, geez.
We could go down the wrong path, and then we would leave on a sour note. But Bert, I appreciate you being part of the show, and I appreciate you letting me be a part of your show, or letting me be part of your show last Saturday night in Jackson, Tennessee for USA Championship Wrestling. And those cretins at New South Wrestling that are trying to perform that hostile takeover of USA Championship Wrestling better think again, because as I said the other night, I have contacts and I have friends and even some enemies who could possibly defend Bert Prentice and the USA Championship Wrestling way of life if they keep trying to fuck around with these power plays.
Well, you know, and I appreciate you doing that. And, you know, James, maybe you talk to your buddy Gunnerman up there and get licensed there, and we'll just go try to take over their building in Franklin, Kentucky one night.
Oh, but goddamn, then I got to get another wrestling license, and that opens up another can. Then people expect me to do these things. Anyway, Bert, I love
it's only
you.
just a thing. Well, we will pay you well to make that happen. But I'd love to go kick his doors up. But we do got that going on. But you know, I think Lawler's going to come to rescue, and I got you behind. Heck, you may come back. You never know.
What about this? What about if I just stalk them in the parking lot up in Franklin? I'll just be parked in the parking lot in my black SUV, and I'll have the window cracked slightly, and I'll be stalking.
That works for me. We'll stand out by the road like someone did to me one time in a spot show in Alabama, a little shit promotion across town, and handed out flyers saying the show was canceled.
Yeah,
before they were pulling in my parking lot. So it's canceled, not folks.
They go around town pulling the posters down. It's
they do that to me all the time. Yeah,
independent wrestling wars. Anyway, all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. Bert, thank you. Everybody support USA Championship Wrestling.